В 2003 году мода на красоту менялась день ото дня. Худоба стала популярным трендом, так и не дошедшим до деревень. В городах все смеялись над полнотелыми дамами, а в деревне мужчины по-другому относились к красоте, не обращая внимания на пропорции своих дам. Антонина была одной из таких пышущих здоровьем красавиц. Девочка родилась в провинции в семье двух трудоголиков, влюбленных в сельский образ жизни. С детства Тоню приучали к труду и говорили, что она должна уметь все – и мужскую работу, и женскую. Продукты у семьи всегда были свои. Картошка с огорода, яблоки с дерева, сало домашнее, творог и сметана не переводились. Мясо было вдоволь. Тяжелая физическая работа требовала усиленного пятиразового питания, поэтому Тоня ни в чем себе не отказывала. После школы девочка пасла коров, чистила курятник, помогала матери взбивать масло. Дел было не впроворот. В школе Тоня училась хорошо. Особо от своих сверстниц не отличалась. В деревне все с широкой костью. Но Тоня была пошире некоторых, конечно. Отец девочки был настоящим богатырем. Эдаким Ильей Муромцем. Антонина фигурой пошла в отца. Крупная, мощная, с крепкой широкой спиной, большой грудью и крупными скулами. Как говорят в деревне, кровь с молоком. Над фигурой Тони в деревне никто не потешался. Всем она была по душе. Парни за ней увивались, нравилось страшно. Такая работящая жена всем нужна. Тоня еле успевала отказываться от свиданий, как ей назначали новые. Красавица была на расхват. Был у Антонины один ухажер, который каждый день приходил к дому и сидел на скамейке, ждал, пока Тоня выйдет. Если она не выходила к нему навстречу, он всю ночь сидел под окнами и ждал. Чего ждал, непонятно. Когда наступили холода, Тоня прогнала молодого человека со скамейки. «Ну-ка, иди отсюда. Простудишься, потом я виновата буду. Не хочу я с тобой на свидание идти». Кавалер не собирался сдаваться. Он приходил каждый день. Носил полевые цветы, шоколадки из сельского магазина. Тоня не выдержала и рассказала ему правду. «Да не ходи ты сюда. Меня все равно скоро тут не будет. Я после школы в город собираюсь. Нечего мне тут делать». Парень обиделся, начал носком землю ковырять, сказать-то нечего. Потом как с дуру ляпнет. «Больно ты там в городе нужна такая. Там худые в цене, а ты так, не очень уродилась. Толстовато и большевато для города. Здесь хоть я тебя люблю, а там кому ты нужна будешь такая?» Тонины щеки резко вспыхнули. Она повернулась к парню, сверкая глазами. Большая толстая коса перекинулась через плечо, распушившись на конце. «А, я толстовата, значит. А ну пошел отсюда!» Молодой человек попятился, чуть не споткнувшись об бугор. «Иди, иди!» Ишь, расселся тут ухажер. «Да у меня таких ухажеров, как ты, вагон и маленькая тележка, понял? Чтобы я тебя больше здесь не видела». Хлопнув калиткой, Тоня зашла во двор и побежала прямиком в курятник. Плакать и страдать. Потом она украдкой пробралась в родительскую спальню, чтобы в большом зеркале рассмотреть свою фигуру. Вроде не совсем уродина, но эта полнотелость все портит. Вот бы талию, как у Анджелины Джоли, а ножки, как у модели. Еще бы и грудь поменьше, тогда точно все будет идеально. Горестно вздохнув, Антонина закрыла дверь в спальню и пошла за очередной порцией пирожков с картошкой. Надо же было как-то скрасить свое горе. Когда девушка сдавала экзамены в школе, внезапно от инсульта не стало ее отца. Мужчину нашли на рабочем месте в местной агрофирме. Он упал в поле и уже не поднялся. Смерть отца семейства стала ударом для Полины Сергеевны и Антонины. Они долго не могли поверить, что Михаила не стало. На нервной почве мама слегла. Стала часто хворать, понадобилось много лекарств. Антонина понимала, что ей нужно устроиться на работу, чтобы помогать матери. Девушка успешно сдала экзамены, получила аттестат и отправилась искать работу в город. Мать осталась одна, но под присмотром тетки Дарьи. Приехав в город, Антонина была шокирована. Она не могла привыкнуть к городскому ритму. Страшно боялась скопления таксистов, и переживала, что у нее умыкнут сумку. Приходилось глядеть в оба, как мать ее учила. Сняв маленькую комнатку у хозяйки, Тоня начала поиски работы. Она купила газеты с объявлениями, обзванивала все фирмы подряд. Девушка уже устала ходить на собеседование, но ее никуда не брали. Обещали перезвонить, но уже и след простывал. Антонина уже отчаялась искать работу. Казалось, что зря она приехала в город, и ей придется вернуться назад. Городской ритм жизни ей нравился, но она пока не могла к нему привыкнуть. Дома, в деревне, все было под рукой, а здесь большие расстояния, но и большие возможности. Когда Тоня уже отчаялась искать работу, ее вдруг взяли уборщицей в одну престижную фирму, которая занималась полиграфией. Заместитель по кадрам взял ее на работу, легонько поморщившись при виде внешнего вида Тони. Но так как компании срочно была нужна уборщица, он взял то, что есть. Директор в это время был в отъезде за границей, поэтому с новой уборщицей познакомиться не успел. Зарплата была мизерная, но Тоня не жаловалась. Для деревни это большие деньги. На таких простушках фирма и экономила. Им мало платили, они молчали и работали. Работала Антонина на совесть, так как привыкла в деревне. Трудолюбивая и исполнительная уборщица наводила чистоту на ура. Все блестело у хозяюшки, но начальству все было не так. В офисе над девушкой потешались. Смеялись над ее лишним весом, даже прозвище обидное придумали – «жируха». Девушка часто слышала, как сотрудницы перешептываются между собой, смеясь над ее немодной косой или слишком обтянутой одеждой. Антонина все терпела, молчала, мыла полы, на них даже не глядела. Что-нибудь ляпнешь, так еще с работы выгонят, а у нее мама больная. Кто ее лечить будет, если денег не будет? Приходилось девушке терпеть и молчать. Однажды офисные крысы совсем вывели ее из себя. Узнав, что у Тони день рождения, они купили ей в подарок самый жирный торт в магазине с намеком «съешь его дома одна». Плюс в пакете подарили платье. Когда Тоня пошла его примерять, она поняла, что девушки нарочно купили самый маленький размер, чтобы она расстроилась, что не влезет. Расплакавшись, побежала на улицу, чтобы успокоиться. Ее еще никто так не задевал. У офисных сотрудников хохма удалась. Они еще неделю обсуждали случившееся, а Тоня со слезами на глазах терла пыль на их компьютерах, представляя, как бьет всех этих мразей грязной тряпкой, пачкая их дорогущие шмотки. Однажды, когда рабочий день почти подходил к концу, Антонина убирала офис, энергично размахивая тряпкой. Она весело что-то насвистывала себе под нос, смахивая косу с одного плеча на другое. Вдруг к офису подъехал директор. Он вошел в здание с компаньонами и направился к своему кабинету. Увидев Антонину, мужчина всплеснул руками и воскликнул: «А очуметь! Месяц меня не было, такой бардак в кадрах! Кто эту корову на работу взял? Вы что там, совсем очумели? Ей только дояркой в колхозе работать, а не в престижной компании. Как такая жируха может нормально мыть полы? Она же чисто физически этого сделать не может». Партнеры весело посмеялись, услышав слова директора. Никто даже и не подумал защитить девушку. Все крысы смолчали, перед директором выстелились. Антонина робко огрызнулась на обвинение, смолчать не смогла. «Жируха не жируха, а работу свою знаю. Вот, посмотрите, как полы блестят». Директор Антонину даже слушать не стал. Он вошел в раж. Начал кричать, руками размахивать, даже пнул ведро ногой. «Как ты смеешь мне огрызаться? Молчи, уволю тебя! Кто тебя такую наглую на работу взял?» И снова за Тоню никто не вступился. Стояли мужчины смирненько, пол носками туфель ковыряли. Директор заявил Тоне, что она уволена, и попросил ее написать заявление. Девушка бросила тряпку прямо на пол и пошла в отдел кадров. На этом ее карьера в городе закончилась. Выходя из офиса, девушка горько заплакала. Она не жалела о потерянном рабочем месте. Здесь ей было совсем не сладко. Жалко было мать, которая осталась без лекарств, и своего потраченного времени. От стыда у Антонины горело лицо, сердце было не на месте. Девушка была готова провалиться сквозь землю, только чтобы никому не рассказывать о том, что ее уволили из-за лишнего веса. Тоня пришла в свою комнату и начала собирать вещи. Хозяйка заметила, что Антонина шуршит пакетами, и зашла спросить, что случилось. «Тонечка, куда собираешься? Что произошло у тебя? Лица на тебе нет. Что случилось?» Тоня хмуро посмотрела на хозяйку. «Уезжаю я из города. Уволили меня сегодня. Не могу я больше тут оставаться». Хозяйке стало до слез жалко наивную простушку. Ведь добрее, чем Антонина, она никогда и никого не встречала. И решила ей помочь. Предложила девушке пойти работать к ее сыну в торговую палатку за малую долю. Сказала, что парню всегда нужны рабочие руки. Такая работа лучше, чем без дела сидеть. Вытерев слезы, Антонина согласилась попробовать поработать. Она разложила обратно собранные вещи и легла спать, с нетерпением дожидаясь утра. Став за прилавок на следующее утро, Тоня поняла, что у нее явно есть талант в коммерции. Она чувствовала себя как рыба в воде, отлично считала и обслуживала клиентов с улыбкой. Парню понравилась Антонина. Они сработались и начали торговать вместе. Николай оказался очень честным и порядочным, а что самое невероятное, абсолютно не жадным. Тоня работала с Колей уже не первый год. Бизнес пошел в гору, молодые люди открыли еще несколько палаток, а Тоня была подспорьем во всех делах. Мать у девочки поправилась, и теперь все деньги можно было тратить на себя, а не только на лекарства. Николай вдруг понял, что Антонина та, которую он искал всю жизнь. Присмотревшись к девушке, мужчина осознал, что жить без нее не может. У них завязались отношения. Через годы совместной работы партнеры поняли, что нужны друг другу как семье. Николай сделал Тоне предложение, и она ответила согласием. Они сыграли скромную свадьбу, позвали всех деревенских родственников. Те после свадьбы еще месяц в деревне рассказывали, как все было и что видели в городе. Тимошины расширили свой бизнес, купили новые торговые точки, стали успешными бизнесменами. Антонина подарила мужу сына. Он был на 7-м небе от счастья. Когда ребенку исполнилось 5, супругов можно было уже назвать одними из самых успешных бизнесменов города. Как стали они зажиточными, так сразу открыли офис в центре города, все так же занимаясь торговлей. Антонина изменилась и расцвела, стала выглядеть намного лучше, чем раньше. Теперь она постоянно посещала салоны красоты, делала маникюр, ходила на массажи, обертывания, занималась с тренером в фитнес-клубе. Ее было не узнать. От полнотелой красотки осталось лишь красивое лицо. Килограммы ушли в минус, девушка постранила на 3 размера. Красавицу теперь все в офисе называли Антониной Михайловной. Однажды к ним в компанию пришел устраиваться менеджером мужчина. Посмотрев на него, Тоня сразу узнала. Он оказался тем директором, который выгнал ее с работы из-за лишнего веса. Оказалось, что во время кризиса мужчина обанкротился и фирму пришлось закрыть. Стал он простым менеджером и теперь работал за небольшие деньги, как все. «Вот она, встреча на Эльбе», – подумала Тоня. Пока бывший директор расхваливал свое резюме, Антонина нажала кнопку охраны. Когда плечистые парни вошли в кабинет, она громко им сказала: «Выведите отсюда этого дистрофика. В моей фирме дресс-код, беру только людей в теле. А вы мне и даром не нужны, еще и в костюме этом копеечном с барахолки. Хоть бы оделись поприличнее для такой солидной компании». Бывший директор всмотрелся в лицо Антонины и внезапно узнал ее. Он вдруг изменился в лице, заплакал от обиды и вышел из кабинета. Антонина окликнула его. «Стойте-ка, если вам нужна работа, могу предложить вакансию дворника. Зарплата небольшая, но на жизнь хватит». Мужчина оглянулся и утвердительно качнул головой. Он согласился на эту работу и понял, что был дураком, опьяненным деньгами. С тех пор дворник больше никогда не судил людей по внешности. Он добросовестно работал в компании и отрабатывал свою зарплату сполна. Если вам понравился рассказ, просьба поддержать меня кнопкой «Палец вверх». А чтобы узнавать о выходе новых интересных историй, при подписке нажмите колокольчик. Всего вам доброго.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. president of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.